Hello everybody, and welcome to my third EDH deck tech. Today we're doing one of my favorite tribes, and that's zombies. Varina the Lich Queen. Esper Colors says whenever you attack with a zombie, you draw a card, gain that much life, however many zombies you attacked with, and you discard that many cards. Then she has a secondary ability that says exile 2 cards from your graveyard, doesn't say creatures, and create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, tapped. So the name of the game with this deck, the way that I built it, is I built it like almost like a dredge mechanic deck, where I really like to get as many small and insignificant zombies out as I can. Doesn't matter if they die or not. I will swing with them, keep dredging and throwing zombies into my graveyard, and then I go for a big reoccursion, kind of like a checkmate style situation where I bring everything back all at once and generally just kill the board with Gray Merchant or enough creatures to kill everybody in one shot. So that's the goal. So we run this creature, Balthar the Defiled. He's actually a zombie as well, but he has the ability to remove him from the game, return all black and red creatures from the graveyard into play. That's one of them. The next one we use is Living Death. Exile all creatures from all graveyards, put them into play, and then sacrifice everything in play and put it into the graveyard. So you just basically switch your graveyard with the battlefield. So this is a really good one as well. Next is Patriarch's Bidding. Each player chooses a creature type. I obviously choose zombies and return all zombies from the graveyard into play. Zombie Apocalypse. Same thing, return all zombie cards from the graveyard into play, except for it has this little added bonus to destroy all humans. This is actually a pretty interesting thing, just because you would be surprised how many commanders are actually humans. You would be just... I would be lying to you to tell you that I haven't killed many commanders and cards with that kill all, destroy all humans portion of this card. It's kind of funny. Ancient Craving, draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. This is when we're getting into our kind of our sorcery section of the deck tech. This is a really good card. Yawgmoth's Will. You've been, throwing everything into your graveyard. Sometimes you don't necessarily have, a living death in your hand, but you do in your graveyard. Sometimes this will allow you to kind of make that play when you need to. This is just a really good card too. Victimize. Trade 1 token for 2 zombies that you just threw in the battlefield into the graveyard. That's pretty good. 2 for 1 is always a really good deal. So we run a couple of different enchantments in here. The Rooftop Storm is one of them. If not, then sometimes turn 1 into a Soul Ring is also just a good plan. It's just a good card for EDH. Doesn't matter if you run white, you run this card. Skeletal Scrying. Sometimes you've pitched a bunch of lands with Varina's ability of whenever you draw a card, you discard the card. You threw a bunch of lands in there that you don't really care about. Skeletal Scrying, at instant speed, draw a bunch of cards. Dark Ritual, if you play black, you'd play Dark Ritual. It's a definite staple card. 1 for 3, instant speed, amazing card. Now we're getting into our creatures. First creature is Fleshbag Marauder. He is a 3/1 zombie, and when he enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. This is really funny when you can reoccur your Fleshbag every single turn, and you start melting away your opponent's creatures, and they just squirm as you keep reoccurring them over and over and over again. Apprentice Necromancer. This is a really interesting card. Sacrifice the Necromancer and with the 1 black, and then you can basically take a creature card from your graveyard and put it into play. This is really good. Lots of things are going in and out of the graveyard. Tormod the Desecrator is a really, really good card in this deck. The amount of zombies that you can accrue with this is pretty substantial, especially mid-game when things start leaving and going in and leaving and going in and leaving. You end up making quite a bit of those tokens. Sometimes you want them for fodder, and sometimes you just need blockers. Doesn't matter. Gary, Gray Merchant. This is basically one of your win conditions. If he comes into play with a clone in your graveyard, which we do run a couple of clones in here, I mean, that could potentially drain everybody for however many zombies you just, plopped into play. You drain everybody out. I mean, this card is great. Zombie Master. He is a zombie. He says all zombies gain 4 walk and regenerate 1, which is really good. Diregraph Colossus. This is a part of the infinite combo. When you have Rooftop Storm and your Gravecrawler out, you can make infinite zombies with him, because whenever you play a zombie, you get a zombie. Cleaver Scab. Another really, really good card with that Gray Merchant. Sacrifice a Gray Merchant to get 2 Gray Merchants. That's a hell of a deal. I mean, you're draining everybody for double now. Or if, you have another card that does similar enter the battlefield effects or whatever. I mean, being able to make 2 of them is a really good thing. And then just reoccurring it, that's even better. Another draw mechanic, so whenever something dies, you lose 1, you draw a card. Very good. It's all about drilling through our deck as fast as we possibly can to make that big explosive recursion happen. Cemetery Reaper. You can exile to get a 2/2, but it's not really worth it. But he is a really good lord just on his own. Sometimes you have no cards in your hand, you need to draw an extra card. Pretty good. Pretty good for 2. Risen Executioner. Really want him for that +1/+1. The secondary ability where you can cast him from the graveyard is not very good, because you're throwing so many creatures in there. He ends up, getting pretty expensive. So, but he's good either way. I mean, any lord, I'll take any lord effect. Any lord effect is great. Carrion Feeder. Sacrifice a creature. There's your sacrifice outlet. So if you have infinite zombies and you need to sacrifice them for some odd reason, to destroy or to drain people for life, this is your guy. Speaking of lords, Lord of the Undead says all zombies get +1/+1, and you can take a zombie from your graveyard, tap him for the 2, and put that zombie directly into your hand, which is really, really good, especially with Gray Merchant. Gray Merchant or Fleshbag Marauder. This card is really baller, especially when you're in the mid game and you're doing something every turn. This card comes in super clutch. Grave Defiler. When he comes into play, look at the top 4 of your library. If it's a zombie card, you put it into your hand. Really good. Being able to drill through your deck is always a good idea. This card, Graveborn Muse, has won me so many games and lost me so many games. Being able to draw for however many zombies you control is like you're playing a very dangerous game of chess. If you're really wanting to go off, keep her on the field and keep drawing those cards. If you have Varina out, where it's whenever you attack with a zombie, you gain the life, it negates that. So it's really good in this deck, but sometimes you're in a situation where you just brought everything back. You're mid-game on life, and then Graveborn Muse is out and you have no sacrifice outlet, and you're like, uh-oh, I'm going to be forced to draw now 30 cards and lose 30 life, and I don't have 30 life to do. So Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. Coffin Queen. This is a really, really interesting card. Pay the 3, and you can take any creature from any graveyard and stick it under play under her control. She stays tapped, though. When she becomes untapped, then you kill it. So, very cool card. Here's Big Daddy. Gravecrawler. Here's your infinite combo mechanic. As long as Gravecrawler is in your graveyard, as long as you can control a zombie, you can play him from your graveyard for the 1 black mana. So, the amount of infinite combos with him are grand. There's lots of them. Lord of the Accursed, another Lord effect. Plus has the added bonus of giving all zombies menace. I mean, it's alright. We don't really care if our zombies die. We're just going to bring them all back anyway, so. Point off of Blight. Other creatures have Extort. So, I don't find myself being able to, especially in Esper colors, being able to pay for this too much, but it is a good pad when you're getting attacked. And I mean, you're a deck that wins by combat. So whenever you can pad your life a little bit, even, it's a good thing. Especially with all the amount of things that drain our life in this to draw cards, because you're using your life as a draw engine. Diagraph Captain, another Lord effect. Whenever a zombie whenever a zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. This is good. I mean, how many times do you think zombies are dying? Especially with the amount that I use to draw cards, and I mean, you can end up draining somebody for 10 or 20 with that card alone. Same thing. Vengeful Dead. Same exact thing. Whenever a zombie goes into the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So a lot of the times we're ahead with our life gain from Varina, or all the other different life gain mechanics in here. Sometimes we want everybody else behind, so everybody loses 1 life for each zombie in play. This can just kill everybody too. Coolest zombie ever. Noxus Ghoul. Whenever a zombie comes into play, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1. So if you play 2 zombies, everything gets -2/-2, 3, 4, and so forth. The art on this card is just phenomenal. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's just so ghoulish. I mean, he really goes with his name. Sweet card. Everything comes into play from one of those big graveyard emptier cards. Everything on your opponent's side is just completely dead. Whenever another zombie dies, create a 2/2 black zombie. Really, really good. I think this is probably one of the most underrated zombie cards. Vesper Ghoul. Being able to pay the 1 life to add 1 of any color. I mean, think about how many lands do that, let alone a creature. Amazing. Tide Hollow Sculler. Being able to take somebody's board wipe out of their hands. Excellent. Very excellent. I mean, this is just a good little card that will allow you to turn the pace of the game. This one stinking little zombie. Tomb Tyrant. Other zombies get +1/+1. Sacrifice or return a creature card random from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's good, especially if you only have 1 or 2 in there. Get a Fleshbag Marauder every turn. Bring him back. Festering Mummy. When he dies, put a +1 or a -1/-1 counter on something. Dope. Do it. You'll be amazed how many times I've hit people with this card just so they don't have to get that -1/-1 counter. This card is amazing. Whenever a zombie dies, each opponent loses 1. Violent Tumor is a way that you can go get your Gravecrawler. This is he is a zombie himself, so that always works with the zombie tribal theme. But being able to go get your Gravecrawler is really good. Corpse Harvester. Sacrifice a creature, search your library for a swamp card. So non-basic. And then reveal it, put it in your hand. And a zombie. So any zombie you want. Bone Miser. Whenever you discard a creature card, put a 1/1 or a 2/2 black zombie creature into play. Whenever you discard a land card, add 2. Whenever you discard neither one, non-creature, non-land, draw a card. I mean, you're sometimes drawing and discarding 10. So you can imagine the amount of work that this guy can do. Just like Festering Mummy, we run Festering Goblin. Crypt Breaker, discard a card and put a 2/2 black zombie into play and tap the 3 untapped zombies and you draw the 1 and lose the 1. Phantasmal Image, this comes into play and it generally will come in and clone my Gray Merchant, especially with one of those big reoccursions. Death Baron, all zombies get +1/+1 death touch, another lord. Blade Stitch Scab, zombies get +1. And the best lord in this deck is Undead War Chief. Zombies cost 1 less to play, get +2/+1. Woohoo! The best of the best right there. Now we run a bunch of artifacts to try to pay for all of our expensive zombies. Run Orzhov Signet, Talisman of Dominance, Azorius Signet, Demir Signet, Soul Ring, of course, Arcane Signet, of course. We run Grim Monolith, Mana Crypt. So we oftentimes do a lot of throwing away of our lands to pay for the cost of Varina. So I run a Crucible of Worlds in here to be able to get those lands back. Don't want to miss the land triggers. Phyrexian Altar, sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana. That goes infinite with Gravecrawler. Once we get everything back from our big recursion, Coat of Arms, drop this and everybody dies. Necroduality, whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a copy of that. This gets out of hand extremely quickly. Just make 2 of everything that comes in. Dying Deserve. Every single time you discard with Varina, you make a 2/2 zombie. Call to the Grave. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they sacrifice a non-zombie creature. It has the added thing of when there isn't anything in the battlefield, you sacrifice this. But I mean, half the time it does its work. Alright, here's the Big Daddy combo card. Rooftop Storm. Zombies cost 0. We all know what that does in a zombie deck that runs like 35 zombies. Grave Pact. Whenever a creature you control dies, each player sacrifices a creature. This is a board clear. Alright. And I don't generally show my lands just because everybody's lands are different. Not everybody has the mana base or the money because everybody is different in that aspect. But here's some lands that I suggest other people using if they're going to run a Varina deck. The Crypt of Agadim is going to be really, really good because you're just pitching everything into your graveyard, right? I've kind of spoken on that now a couple of times. We're just pitching everything into our graveyard to do one big mass recursion. And Crypt of Agadim is going to net us a ton of mana when we have all those creatures in our graveyard. Next is just a really good little sacrifice outlet to be able to keep playing creatures from our graveyard, essentially. We need to be able to have a sacrifice outlet
and sometimes the Phyrexian Tower, especially being able to make the two black, this comes in clutch. And then the third one that I would suggest people to use with this deck is Unholy Grotto. I mean, if you can sacrifice your Gray Merchant and you can bring him back and put him on top of your library and then play a Gray Merchant, I mean, the game's going to be over quicker than you can think. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for watching my third deck tech. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this. It's a little bit of a process here to learn how to actually speak about the cards that I've only thought about in my mind. So, anyway, that's Varina the Lich Queen, Zombie Tribal EDH. Peace, guys. See you on the next one.